Hi and welcome back to Crazy Bean Cooking Channel. We are launching videos at the moment to share some of our cooking tips and tricks from our restaurant Crazy Bean. Last time you saw me, I was helping you or showing you how we do our sponge cakes, and today I'm going to take you through how to do a buttercream decoration for that cake. So hopefully you all had a go at cooking the cake, and today we get to finish it. So in order to do that, I obviously have the cake here that we baked together last time. I've got some chocolate for finishing off the cake. I've got some pieces here, some icing sugar, some Trex, some spread and some soya milk for making the buttercream. And all the ingredients and amounts and the recipe is underneath this video, so you can check that out and make it yourself. So first of all, our lovely cake that we baked. I'm just going to because we greased the tin so well, it should just fall out of that tin. Perfect, I can feel it coming. There we go. And I'm just going to take the parchment off the bottom of the cake that we put in the bottom of the cake tin. Now, I've let that cake cool completely in that tin before we tip it out because it's just easier. The cake shrinks a little bit and it all comes out without damaging the bottom. So you can see there that the cake is perfect and that's going to be really nice and easy to decorate. So for now, I'm going to pop that to one side and I'm going to concentrate on doing our buttercream. Now, for those of you who don't want to make the buttercream, a bit of a vegan buttercream tip is that the Betty Crocker buttercreams that you can buy in most supermarkets are vegan, and they have a great consistency. They go on the cake really easily. They taste really good. So if you don't want to make your buttercream, you can just cheat and buy a container of that, and the kids can get involved and get that onto the cake in exactly the same way as we're going to use this buttercream in a minute. Right. So I have here 75 grams of spread. I have 75 grams of Trex. And for those of you who don't know what Trex is, it comes in a small white container. I'll put a picture of it on the YouTube channel. And it's called Trex. It's like a vegetable fat. It's a hard vegetable fat. And it's really great for vegan cooking because it's just made of vegetables. You can normally find it in this section of the supermarket where you find butters and things like that. So it's generally in the refrigerated section, or just ask somebody to help you to find that. I'm going to pop the butter in straight away. The spread. This is the Trex. You can see it's more pale in color and it's a hard fat like that. It's better if you let these fats just get to room temperature before you start to work with them, because then you avoid any lumps and bits. So in here I have 750 grams of icing sugar, and we're going to add that slowly to the fats. So if you don't have a mixing bowl like this, it's okay. You can combine it by hand. It's a little bit of an effort. Or you can use one of those electric hand mixers. That's really good as well. But you need to get air in there, and you need to get all of your fats and sugar combined. So I'm going to start off by just putting a dribble of milk. We've got about 60 mils of milk in here, but we may not need to use it all. We just kind of wait and see how it goes. So I'm going to shut that down, and I'm going to just start whizzing on that. It might get loud, so just 1 second. So what I've done there is I've creamed all of those fats together, and I'll just show the camera. You can see that they're pretty well combined in there, and they've become sort of creamy and aerated. That's perfect. So what we want to do is start adding our icing sugar bit by bit. So I'm just going to put about a quarter of the icing sugar in, and mainly this is just so that we don't make a mess, because we don't want to whiz it and all the icing sugar go everywhere. And then what I do is I just use a spatula to combine it and just wet the icing sugar through a little bit, and then we'll give it another whiz. And the trick is to just keep going until you've disappeared all of your icing sugar, and it will disappear into there, and it will create a lovely, creamy, lovely buttercream for us to work with. So I'm going to go in again with the next half. And I'm just going to add a tiny bit of milk just to dampen it a little bit as we keep going. And give it another whiz. Now you can add essences and things. So if you were to add a little bit of vanilla essence, that can really help with the flavor. Or because we have a caramel cake, you might want to just put a tiny bit of caramel into the flavor just to lift that flavor of that cake. So that's really up to your own taste. But if you do add a little bit of essence, don't forget you're adding a bit of moisture. So just watch watch that you don't make the mix too wet, and you might just need a bit less milk, but you can balance that off, and you'll see in a minute what kind of consistency we're looking for. And we're going to do that one more time. And that should be all of our icing sugar in there now. And then I'm going to add a tiny bit more milk. And hopefully this is our last whiz, and we'll have some lovely buttercream to start working with our cake. Right, let's have a look at our consistency here. Just get that all out of your mixer. And that is not looking too bad. Right, I think we can work with that. You might want to add a little bit more moisture, but I think we're going to be okay. So as you can see, we have our buttercream here. It's pretty well combined. Just give it a final mix. And you can see that I can work with it. It's kind of workable, it moves, but it also holds its shape. And that's really important. This is probably a touch dry, but we're going to work with it anyway. It's going to be fine. So we don't want to waste anything on here. So we'll try and get that all off if we can. Perfect. There we go. Right. I'm going to put the chocolate to one side because we're going to use that in a little while to just finish off our cake. But to start with, what we need to do is create a nice cake ready for decorating. So the way we do that is really, really simple. We're going to take our cake and we're going to pop it on just on the chopping board all on its own. Now what we want to do is put a buttercream middle so that when you get a nice slice of cake, you've got buttercream on the top, bottom, and in the middle. So what I'm going to do is the trick to this is to take your bread knife, and what we say with knives is let the knife do the work. So the knife, you want to hold it as much in line with the chopping board as you can, and try and forget there's a cake in the way, if that makes sense. And you're going to lift your knife up to halfway along the cake, and then I'm going to try and keep that nice and level with the chopping board, and I'm just going to very carefully take that through the cake, and I'm going to let the knife do the work. And you should be able to get all the way through an 8-inch cake like this without too much trouble, and hopefully we have a pretty even cut. Let's have a look. So it's not too bad. A little bit fatter on the bottom than the top. It's probably not quite perfect, but it's going to be fine. Now you can slice the top off and square off your cake. I quite like leaving it with a nice bumpy top because I think it's yummy and it's where a lot of the flavour is, in the edge of the cake. So for a cake at home, I like to leave that on. Now, all of us pro, which I'm not at all, but all of us pro cake decorators use a piece of equipment like this. You don't need one. You can do it fine at home without, but it does help just to move your cake around as you're decorating. So I'm going to use one today, but if you don't have one at home, don't worry, you'll be fine. So what I'm going to do to start with is just put a tiny bit of buttercream on the bottom. I'm also using a cake base here. It's just a simple piece of card with a bit of silver foil on it. You can buy them online, but again, if you want to decorate your cake on a plate, a nice flat plate would be great. That'd be fine as well, but I'm just using that for today. So I'm going to start by putting a bit of buttercream on there, and what that's going to do is stick my cake to that board so that I can easily decorate it. What I'm going to do, it's a bit of a trick, this is. Instead of putting it up this way and having a crummy middle, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it up this way so that I've got the nice sharp edges and the kind of outside of the bake that I can actually start decorating on. Now, one thing I wanted to say with this video is I'm not going to go into all of the detail of doing perfect buttercream edges and a perfect buttercream cake. If you do want to do that, it is really fun to try, but there's loads of videos online that you can look up on how to decorate your buttercream cake. So what I'm going to do is just a nice simple decoration, the kind of thing that you can do at home together that's really easy and sort of not stressful. But yeah, by all means, have a go at that, at the perfect straight edge cake and the perfect corners. It is good fun to have a go. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to plop my buttercream into the middle of that cake there, nice and easy. I'm using a spatula, and this is a palette knife, but if you don't have a palette knife, a normal knife at home is absolutely fine. It's going to work absolutely fine. Now, what I want to do is I want to push into my cake and out to the sides, and that way I'm not going to rip the cake, I'm not going to end up with kind of less buttercream on the edges and a big bump in the middle. So what I want to do is just push that out, keep pushing that out like that. It's moving around a bit, but you'll be fine. You'll make it work. And then I'll just get it out to the edges. I might need a bit more, in which case I can pop a bit more on. I'm going to keep pushing that out, see how we go. It's a little bit squishy and fun, a little bit messy, which is fine. Right, and as you can see, we've managed to get that to spread out across most of the middle of that cake. And you can see how the spinning plate works. These are actually really cheap online. If you want to buy one and have a go with it, you can get quite snazzy with your decorations using a spinny plate like this. It's quite fun. You can stick this base to the bottom, that's why it's sliding off, but for this cake I'm not bothering. I'm just going to manage it. So I've got all my buttercream to the sides like that. I'm just going to kind of polish off the edges a bit so that we've got a bit of a nice edge poking out from the cake, but it doesn't really matter too much. I think the more messy it looks, the more yummy it looks actually myself. Right. Perfect. Now we can come along with the top of our cake, and I'm just going to pop that on the top like that. Now you can clean up the edges. You can buy these kind of scrapers online. These are really good. You can scrape up the edge of your cake, and if you want to do a proper buttercream finish, these are really great for helping you to make those perfect edges. So they're a really good tool to have in your kit bag. But again, jump online, have a look at all those decorating videos because they're really good. Right, so now I'm just going to finish off the top of my cake. Again, I'm just going to plop a big blob of buttercream in the middle, like that. Ugh, it's going to have lots of buttercream on it, this cake. And then again, I'm just going to spread that out to the sides, making sure that I don't squish the middle too much and kind of disrupt the cake too much. But this bake, if you try it, there's such a good crumb on this cake that you can kind of mess around with the cake. You can cut it into shapes. It's a really good solid hard, you know, it's soft inside when you eat it. It's really fluffy, but it's a nice firm constitution, that bake. So you're not going to get crumbling and breaking and all sorts of things like that. You might hear my dogs in the background in a minute. They like to have a bit of a bark through the window. So there we go. So I think for me, that is a really nice, casual, at-home cake that anybody can make. And you can get fancy. You can do a little swirl on the top. I quite like a swirl on the top. You can do some little pieces like this just to give it a bit of fun. But you know, when it comes to your decoration and how you want to finish off the cake, you can do that any way you like and have a go with that. So that's kind of a simple buttercream cake. Now, what I have here is a little bit of chocolate. I'm going to pop that in the microwave, and I'm going to just melt it down and show you how you can do a bit of a chocolate drizzle on the top. So I'll be back in a minute. Right, so I have my chocolate here. It is pretty well melted. There's still a couple of lumps in it, but that's okay because you really don't want that chocolate to overheat. The way I've done this is I've just put it in the microwave for 30-second stints. I think it's taken 3, and then you mix it in between, and the key is not to overheat your chocolate. Just make sure that it's got this nice runny consistency like that. Now really, in terms of what you want to do with your chocolate, it's the sky's the limit. You can get as creative and as fun as you want. I've decided to leave my edges a little bit rough there, but you can neaten them up if you like. You can just take a knife or something like that and neaten them up like this. As you can see, it's so easy when you have this turntable. You can kind of have a play around and see what works for you. I quite like that. I'm quite happy with that as my finish. I'm not really into the big perfect buttercream finishes. I like a cake to look a bit rustic and homemade because I think it looks really yummy. So now I've got my chocolate ready. I could do some drips down the side. I could drizzle it over the top. You could get a piping bag and do swirly whirlies or whatever you fancy doing. I'm just going to do really simple using a spoon to show you that anybody can play with chocolate at home. And I'm going to make sure some of it goes down the edge. I want it to be all rustic and bumpy so that when you get a piece of cake, for this cake, you get a big mouthful of chocolate on the top. But you might want to make yours look more pretty. It's up to you, really. But yeah, just have a play, see what works. The drizzles down the side are really yummy. Going to put a big one here. There we go. And now we've got all of this nice splashy chocolate on top. But again, if you want to get more fine bits of chocolate on top of your cake, you can use a piping bag, or you can cover it all in chocolate, however you fancy. So that for me is a really delicious, homemade, rustic, fresh cake that we could all enjoy together as a family. Now, I would clean up the edges and things like that normally, but do you know what? I think it just looks yummy and delicious as it is. So let's cut a piece off this cake and have a look what it looks like inside. Now with an 8-inch cake, you get 8 to 10 really, really yummy, delicious slices. And if I take that like that and I grab a plate, I'm going to show you how good this cake looks inside. Here's my lovely plate. I'm going to grab that piece of cake there. And I'm going to show you how delicious and yummy and creamy and buttercreamy inside that cake looks. And you can see the lovely fresh bake on that cake as well. It's absolutely delicious. So you must try that. You saw how easy it is. You saw how much fun it is. Everybody's going to really enjoy making this cake at home. And I'd really love you to send in your pictures and show us how you've decorated your cake. Thanks for joining us, and do give it a go and have some fun. Thanks. Bye.